Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska has long been seen as the most unpredictable vote in the Senate. So as President Trump's massive agenda was on the line this month, it all came down to Murkowski, who ultimately voted yes, despite her concerns over health care and food stamp cuts. And after Alaska, won some big carve-outs. And after Vice President Vance broke the tie to send the bill to the House, Murkowski said, quote, "This bill needs more work across chambers and is not ready for the president's desk." But the House did not change the bill and sent it straight to Trump. So this past week, I caught up with the senator who had said little about her decisive vote. Given that it passed and that people can suffer health care cuts and food stamp benefit cuts, do you regret voting for the Senate pass?
Manu, I did everything that I could to try to improve that bill. Is it the bill that I would have designed? Of course not. But I had a couple choices. Either try to make it less bad, which I think that I did, not only for the people of Alaska, but for the country when we were able to double the funding for the Rural Health Transformation Fund. I think that's going to help not only these hospitals but all of the 50 states.
Do you worry that people may lose their health care because of this bill?
That was what I was trying to do, along with others, to make sure that that is not going to be the case.
What do you think of people who say that it was naive to think that the House would make it better?
I don't think it's naive to suggest that processes like conference committees cannot happen. We do conferences. We haven't done them like we should.
But didn't you think they were just going to jam it through?
They jammed it through the House the first time. I thought that there was an opportunity for a conference and actually had that discussion with other members and the Vice President as well.
Did the Vice President suggest that they would do it?
The Vice President did not commit to it, but he heard me out. And I think it's important to recognize that we have two bodies here, and when there are differences between the bodies, what happens is you work it out. Sometimes it's an open conference process. Other times it's what we call ping-ponging back and forth. And so, no, it was not naive to suggest that it could have happened.
All right, my panel is back. Murkowski's handling of this was something to watch. I mean, she's someone always you watch because you don't know how she's going to come down. She was someone who opposed Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. She voted to convict Donald Trump in the second impeachment trial. She voted thumbs down on the first Obamacare repeal in the first Trump term. But what do you make of her handling of this issue? If it weren't for her, this bill would not become law.
I think she used the maximum amount of pressure that she could and the power that she had, or I think what you just heard her defending it, saying, I did what I could for Alaska, making the bill as better as I could, but that was my role. She wasn't going to go further. She wasn't going to tank it, and that was made clear after hours of us all watching, trying to figure out what exactly was going to happen.
Yeah, and you can see on your screen some of the carve-outs that she won after that 27-hour marathon session of voting on the Senate floor. Now, the question is going to be about how this plays in the midterms. This is going to be the defining issue in a lot of ways next November, and already there's some suggestion about how Trump will message this on the campaign trail. This coming week, he is hitting the road. He's going to Pennsylvania along with J.D. Vance, where they're going to be traveling. They're going to be talking about this. The question is, will Trump continue to try to sell this bill to the public? Remember, we saw Biden struggle to sell their plans, the Inflation Reduction Act and the like. There's a lot of criticism about him not doing that on the infrastructure law as well. This is what Trump said to NBC News this past week. He said Trump talked about the bill. He's saying he would travel, quote, a little bit. But honestly, he says, it's been received so well that I don't think I have to. What are you hearing from your sources?
You know, one of the there's a way that journalists and historians talk about President Trump as the most consequential of the 21st century, but I think all presidents kind of want to be great, and that's about more than just winning elections. It's about the impact of this bill. It's about, a bill that has his fingerprints all over it, what impact it's going to have. And I think he has to go out and run some defense. You know what Democrats are going to say. They're going to say that, you're taking away Medicare, you're taking away health care, and you're giving tax breaks to the rich. And I think that in part, as we talk about narrative, as we talk about the arc of the first 6 months, as we talk about legacy, Trump is going to have to go out there and sort of defend, his argument, his theory of the case.
And Republicans want him to be the messenger, right? Mm-hmm. This is his bill. They believe, if you talk to Senate Republicans, House Republicans, they are concerned about what people are going to say when it comes to rural hospitals closing, if they lose their benefits. A lot of the bulk of that bill is just keeping things in place that people already had. You're not feeling a benefit of a tax cut this time. And so I think Republicans are going to look really to him and to his team to say, okay, what do you think what is going to work in the midterm election?
And it's not just social safety net programs. It's the phase out of the green energy tax breaks. There are Republicans and Democrats who have enjoyed that. And you mentioned the Democrats. What is their strategy? Well, yes, it is pretty obvious. Just listen to just some of the attack ads that have already been leveled against some House Republicans.
She promised to bring down our costs. But Congresswoman Marionette Miller Meeks just voted to make our electric rates skyrocket.
While Americans are celebrating our country with family, friends, and fireworks, Republicans in Congress just passed the largest cut to Medicaid in history.
It's the biggest cut to Medicaid in history, and Congressman Rob Bresnahan just voted for it.
That's why they need air cover from Trump to defend them from this. The question is that going to be enough given what we're already seeing?
Yeah, they know. I mean, and the thing, too, is we keep talking about, how Democrats are going on the offense on this bill. There's a lot of Republicans who are very, anxious about how this is, particularly on, it's not just the different provisions in the bill that are, of course, going to play differently in different districts and states, but also this idea of more spending. I mean, when I talk to people in the base, when I talk to other Republicans, they are very concerned about the impact this is going to have on the national deficit, particularly the most conservative. I mean, we saw the Freedom Caucus and others on the right really make that their stand. But that's something the president and his team knows they need to run cover on.
They made their stand, but they ultimately caved and they gave him this, even though it had a $5 trillion debt limit increase.
And between this bill and Trump's tariffs, it's his economy. We were talking about this with FEMA. Whatever happens in the economy now, he owns that. And I think one of the things that Democrats learned the hard way in the last election is trying to advertise about the economy, telling people what to think about their own economic well-being is not as responsive to attack ads as maybe some other issues. You can't tell people what to think about their own wallet.
Yeah, no question about it. All right, that's obviously the big debate over the next year and a half. A lot more to digest as that unfolds.